this video, I want to introduce you to principles and a little bit of process that, on an abstract level, whether you work with me or anyone else, I think makes for a much more successful and effective journey. The first thing I want to talk about is the ratio. And in this case, the ratio of effort by the healer, the doctor, etc., and the client. Now, I'm specifically talking about mental emotional healing here. However, I want to suggest that a peak ratio is one in which a healer, be it a therapist, a coach, an energy healer, etc., spends about 15% of the time and exerts around 15% of the energy, and in which the client spends 85%. So a 15-85% ratio. For example, in a coaching relationship, one in which you spend an hour a day building, growing, learning, etc., and your coach checks in with you 15 minutes a day, this is a peak performance ratio. Because the real change in what makes it sustainable and locks it in is you knowing how, having the confidence, and going through the process. Now, this ties in with the next point, which is, what is healing? Healing is restoring wholeness and balance to the various energy systems involved. Now, this cannot be done without a complete picture. Meaning, if you just show a hand and that's all you show, and it just happens that the injury is on your hand, then great. But if you just show a hand and there's a lot of other stuff going on different parts of the body, then the medicine that on the surface might treat the hand in the big picture may be contributing to the imbalance. Now, what are some of the different energy systems in play? You've got a financial system. And in a case in point, if you have a cut on your thumb with a very minor risk of infection, and you have a foreclosure on your house that desperately needs attention and money, on the surface, you always take care of the issue on your thumb, or whatever the issue is. But if you're looking at the energy systems and their ecological links with one another, there are times when stressing an already imbalanced and stressed financial system. What's an unhealthy financial system? One that's heavily in debt, and where that debt has been spent in ways that actually increase the expenses long-term rather than returning an investment. So you have the financial system. You have the physical body system. You have the social system. And you have the mental emotional system. There are times when something is technically healthy for your heart and mind, but because it's disintegrated with your social system in such a way that it causes severe harm to your social system. The husband that can't understand the guru and so divorces you because you went to the guru behind his back. Just a hypothetical scenario. Or your Christian friends can't abide whatever it is, and you go and do something else. You can very effectively be doing something quite well with said guru or said healing practice, but if it leaves your children to be relocated, you need to sell your house, you get a divorce, etc. In other words, these systems all interrelate, and you want to behave gracefully. And what gracefully means is you look at the ramifications. You look at the ramifications, and you look at the system as a whole. And what we're moving towards is sustainable well-being. Sustainable well-being in a holistic paradigm is far more important than any dogma, any specific truth, any politics, any particular brand or purchase or this, that, or the other. Sustainable well-being as a whole is the deity. And if that can be achieved with an ice cream cone, go get the ice cream cone. If that can be achieved with listening quietly and giving 5 or 6 hours to your children to break the barrier of hurriedness, because many children protect their parents, and if you don't give them an unhurried space, if you ask them how they're doing with a hurried look as you walk out the door, they're not going to tell you about the bullying. They're not going to tell you about the addiction, because they know that on a deep level, you have not allowed time for it. You don't want to hear it because you haven't scheduled for it. But they just might tell you if you just sit together for 5 or 6 hours and create a framework of abundance. And that sitting together for 5 or 6 hours may bring more well-being to your family system than all the channeled entities, all the Edgar Cayce books, whatever it is. Because we're looking for sustainable and healthy balance. Now, to achieve that, you've got to take stock. Here's the health of our finances. These are the reserves we have. These are the debts we have. This is our income. These are our trends. Income is going up. Debt is going down. Reserves are good. The debts are generating cash flow in investments, or we're just barely hanging on. What is the picture? Health. Energy is increasing. Energy is decreasing. You're taking on more and more habits and activities that feed you or deplete you. And of course, in our culture, these things are often in tension. We create sociopathic workplaces that deplete us, but then our theory, of course, is that we'll take the money from those workplaces to reinvest and refill that depleted energy. But what if it's not working? What if the amount that the job is taking away is far more than the money is replenishing? We need to have a sense of these systems. So the economic system, the habit system, the social system, the traumatic system is one of the key things. And this is an area that you very much need help. And I'd like to recommend that you look at the traumatic system directly prior to dabbling in some of the other systems to assess the risk factor. The best book that I know is The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. And with this, you can take an inventory of trauma, an inventory of traumatic coping mechanisms, including compulsion and addiction. And from this point of, you can compile a narrative of the significant emotional events and the significant messages that you've received over a lifetime. Because when we're looking at healing and restoring wholeness, we start with a diagnosis. The diagnosis is the observable pattern of imbalance. So you have a father that won't listen to you. You have a school system that won't listen to you. You have a boyfriend that won't listen to you. You have a church that won't listen to you. The last thing you need is a teacher, a healer, a guru who thinks they know best. What you need is to be listened to. That may be the strongest medicine, regardless of anything else, if that pattern is that strong and has been repeated on so many levels. The pattern must be observed and its intensity gauged. Your body will tell you how intense the pattern is, as will your feelings. The repetition and the numbers of areas will tell you what the pattern is. What stands out for you is very likely to be part of the pattern. So this is how I'd like to invite you to prepare. Look at your social system, your work system, your relationship with other. I say other instead of God or God, Goddess, all that is, because what is undeniable is that we are part of an ecological fabric, of an ecology that is much bigger than us. And regardless of the name or whether you believe it is supernatural or completely natural, there is a system of other, a relationship with the unknown, a relationship with the other. On a very mundane level, the relationship that you have with all the other cultures in the world, all the other peoples. Are you afraid of them? Do you embrace them? Are you excited to connect with them? The other. You meet new people, you meet a stranger. Are you afraid of them? You embrace them. Do you have space to see something exciting coming through their door? With things you do not know, 99.9% of all knowledge is not only not known, it is unknown. It hasn't even been grasped that we don't know it. 99.9% of all the time-space out there in the multiverse is unknown. What's your relationship with it? Is it one of fear? Is it one of embrace, curiosity, partnering, adversarial? What's the relationship with other? This is a very significant relationship, be it a deity, a god, whatever the god is or goddess, be it the universe, the multiverse, the past, the future, possibility. It's all other, and it's 99.9%. Meaning us and our little world is a bit of a bit of a bit. So our relationship as that little bit with the totality of all that is a significant relationship, and it usually correlates to trauma. The more we have been traumatized in infancy by abusive parents and culture, the more fearful and guarded we are of the unknown and the unknown. And this expresses itself in fanaticism and dogma. You can gauge the trauma of a nation, of a culture, of an individual, of a family by their relationship with the unknown. What happens there is, if you have unresolved trauma, trauma is the thing that threatens your sense of survival. It is the one thing you cannot deal with alone. If this goes unresolved and unintegrated and unhealed, the unknown represents the possibility of reenacting the trauma. And someone with unresolved trauma will do anything they possibly can to avoid feeling that trauma, to avoid exposing themselves to more trauma. It is the people who have the highest trauma load that have the greatest fear of the unknown. So these systems relate to one another. If you have lots of money, a healthy relationship with trauma, you enjoy the unknown, etc., you probably have a healthy body. because you're not carrying the load of those traumatic anxieties. What is your masculine-feminine balance and your level of chauvinism? Now, we're all born into a chauvinistic culture that goes much deeper than gender, because the surface chauvinism says that men are, somehow more valuable than women, and that's why they get paid more, despite the evidence that shows that women run companies more effectively than men. Men maybe make the big deals, but they also make the big losses in that adrenaline risk and addiction. So that's the surface addiction, but the deeper, or the surface chauvinism, but the deeper chauvinism is men and women valuing their assertiveness more than their receptivity, valuing their speaking skills more than their listening skills, their teaching position more than their learning position, valuing getting to the point rather than enjoying the journey, valuing the individual more than the group and the community, valuing thoughts and interesting ideas more than the depth of emotion, valuing independence and individuality more than interdependence and need and the circle. These are some of the faces of chauvinism. And they begin with the dialogue inside. It's imposed abusively by the culture that systematically in the West overvalues masculine energy and undervalues and shames feminine energy. Now, interestingly, within this chauvinism, men are shamed even more than women for being feminine. You can see that even in the bias of the receptivity to lesbian women, even redneck men. Oh, it's kind of cute. But the hostility to effeminate men, homosexual men, it's more intense. The fear, the anger, and the hostility towards the feminine is more intense towards men and their feminine. And as a result, many men are more wounded in their feminine than women are. But every human being in a healthy state has a balance of masculine and feminine energy, the ability to speak and the ability to listen, the ability to lead and the ability to follow, the ability to teach and the ability to learn. When these are symmetrical and appropriately applied to the situation, when do you want to be the teacher? When you can teach people more effectively than anyone else present. When do you want to be the student? When you are not the most competent teacher, and you will learn more by deferring to someone who knows. When do you want to speak? When your words can bring more well-being than the words of anyone else present. When do you want to listen? When someone else's words can bring you well-being. When you have the flexibility to lead and follow, speak and listen, initiate and say, yes, yes, I want to do that. Thank you for that idea. The giver and the receiver. You have enormous potency and power. When you can't receive, because that would make me weak, because we all know that the feminine is weak. And we all know that because we've had that shoved down our throats as participants in this culture. There's nothing weak about receiving. We desperately need more listeners than speakers in this culture. We are in a deep deficit of feminine energy as part of our chauvinistic wound. And the fact that women can make as much money as men if they push for it and compete on masculine terms does not heal the underlying chauvinism that says that the person in the masculine role, and in any exchange of energy, there is a masculine role and there is a feminine role. In any exchange of energy, it's not about gender. If someone talks and nobody listens, there's no communication. If someone leads and nobody follows, there is no leadership. They are interdependent polarities, and they are equal and neutral. The intelligent person takes the position that will lead to the most well-being and honors both positions equally. We are not an intelligent culture. So what is your masculine-feminine balance? Do you honor your artistic, your spontaneity in time, the spontaneous joy of, let's go and do this? And someone says, yes, that is a completely feminine inspiration, emotion, spontaneity with time, and yes, flow. I think I can fit you into my schedule at 12:15 on the 14th. Can you manage that? It's going to be tight, but I think, let's touch base next week. A completely masculine exchange. What's the balance of time in your masculine and feminine energy? If you will prepare these modules, your masculine and feminine balance, your trauma awareness and trauma history, the significant patterns in your life that have affected you the most, the messages that seem to knock you off kilter, and where they have come from, how deep they are. Your financial system, your body system, your emotional system, your mental system, and your relationship with the unknown. As well as the balance of past, present, and future. How are you doing in that conversation? Are you always in the future, but never doing the things in the present needed to create that future? Are you constantly waiting for things to happen in the romantic arena, but go getting them in the financial arena? No, I don't just wait to meet my financial mate. I get up and sell. But in romance, I just wait. My soulmate will appear. No, I don't respond to emails from these losers, and I just wait. Is it all feminine in one arena and all masculine in another? And which one is working for you? Because these are part of the system. And your assessment, your diagnosis, as you compile these patterns, are a key part of the healing. So much of medicine is consciousness, this is all happening already. Some part of you knows, but it's bringing this pattern to the attention of your limited ego-conscious self that has the seat of power, because it's going to be that self that is going to need to make a new choice. And that brings me to the final goal, ultimately, in any of this work. And it's that you potently create sustainable levels of well-being. Potently create sustainable levels of well-being with grace. With more grace than any other way that we can figure out how to do it. And then there's the dose. There's the prescription. There's the sense of the container that is going to best hold this. And the tracking system, so that we don't just go through these wobbling process where spend all the money and now this is doing fabulously and you're broke, and then spend all this time doing this and now you've got money but you feel terrible. It's the tracking system that's going to keep you on track with moving these systems in a healthy and sustainable way forward. I honor the commitment, the discipline of your masculine self to think this stuff through. And I honor the feminine that is the reason you're worth thinking it through. In a healthy dynamic, the masculine energy protects, worships, serves, and nurtures the feminine. And as the feminine blossoms in her beauty, her pleasure, her spontaneity, her excitement, the masculine receives the joy of making her happy. This can happen in a couple dynamic, but it happens within. Will your masculine fight to honor and protect what is innocent, what is spontaneous, what is beautiful, what is sensitive, what is alive and flowing in you? Or will your masculine shut that down in fear, in judgment, in shame, for fear of being exposed to the rampant chauvinism of our culture? When the masculine serves and honors the feminine in both the man and the woman delights in the gratitude, the honor, the devotion, and the yes to the masculine. This is when the self unites, when your feminine will say yes to being served and loved and cherished and adored, when your masculine will fight to honor your feminine, you come alive. Life becomes magical, worth living. There's purpose to honor the sacred feminine in every man, in every woman.